Your mind is not the safe place you think it is, and that's exactly why this message hits different right now, because something inside you has been spiraling without you realizing it. There's a storm running in the background of your head, like a hidden app draining your battery while you're trying to live life on 2%. And you've been blaming motivation when the real threat has been the non-stop overstimulation that's been eating your clarity from the inside out. This is where the story begins, and retention becomes the thing you never realized you desperately needed. Before we go deeper into semen retention mastery, subscribe to this channel and join our Telegram community linked below. You'll get guidance, insights, and exclusive updates designed to accelerate your growth. Stay connected. Your discipline, focus, and transformation begin right here. Your brain has been pulled in 1,000 directions by impulses that were never supposed to control you. The constant scrolling, the late-night loops, the artificial dopamine spikes, the images. You consume faster than you can process them. All of it has been chipping away at your inner power like invisible termites eating your mental foundation. You've been wondering why you wake up drained, why your confidence feels like it has a leak, why nothing hits the same. But the truth is simple and ruthless. Your brain has been operating on emergency mode without you even knowing it. Retention enters this story like a shield you didn't know you could carry. Not a magic trick, not a superstition, not a miracle claim, but a recalibration of your entire system. Retention is the moment you stop feeding the beast that's been devouring your mental energy and start reclaiming the strength you lost, drop by drop, impulse by impulse. You don't rise instantly, you rise gradually, and the rise feels like a reboot you've been waiting your entire life to experience. There's something electric that happens when you cut off overstimulation. Your focus feels like it wakes up from a coma. Your energy stops leaking into fantasies and mismatched desires. Your mind begins cleaning itself up without you forcing it. In that first moment when you feel presence again, real presence, not the fog-filled autopilot mode you've been stuck in, that moment is the first sign that you've stepped into a new version of yourself. People don't talk about this part enough, the part where your instincts sharpen like a blade that's finally been pulled from the dirt. You start noticing patterns, you start reading people better, you stop getting distracted by meaningless urges. Something primal awakens, something masculine, something grounded, something that was always yours but got buried under layers of digital noise. Retention doesn't give you a new identity, it just reminds you of the one you lost. Your earliest days of retention feel like walking through a haunted house where the ghosts are your old habits. They show up, whispering temptations, trying to pull you back into the loop, trying to convince you that you haven't changed. But every time you resist, you take the keys back from impulses that have been driving your mind into the ground. That's where the suspense builds, because you're fighting something you can't see, but you can feel completely. Your body starts reacting differently. Your posture shifts. Your eyes stabilize. Your energy moves with authority instead of hesitation. You're no longer being tossed around by the waves of craving or frustration. You start deciding instead of reacting. And it's wild how quickly the world notices, even when nobody says a word. People sense your presence before you speak. They feel your confidence before you express it. Retention changes your broadcast signal. This is where the internal transformation begins, the phase where your mind and body sync up like a system finally running the correct update after years of lag. You stop chasing distractions, you stop negotiating with impulses, and your mind begins building instead of collapsing. Your energy, which was once scattered, becomes concentrated like a laser aimed at the life you actually want. The suspense deepens because retention feels like a psychological thriller, where the villain is your past self, the one who lived off cheap dopamine and mindless gratification. That version of you doesn't die quietly. It claws at you, begs you to come back, tempts you with easy pleasure because it knows once you break free, you're never returning. The tension is real because you're rewriting your neural pathways while the old ones scream. This is where your story turns powerful. Retention starts strengthening your willpower, the same way discipline strengthens muscles. The urges don't vanish, you just get stronger. The noise doesn't stop you, just outgrow it. You begin understanding your mind like a machine instead of a mystery. And suddenly things that once controlled you become predictable patterns you can shut down on command. Your mind becomes sharper and you feel it in ways that are impossible to fake. You think clearer, you process faster. You feel more, you sense more. You take in the world around you at a different resolution, like life has finally switched from low quality. That mental upgrade is the real superpower. Retention gives you not because it turns you into something supernatural, but because it removes the things that were crushing your potential. Your emotions stabilize. The overthinking quiets. Your mood becomes steady instead of swinging. You start respecting yourself in ways you ignored before. You begin walking like someone who finally understands the value of his own energy. The world hasn't changed, but your internal ecosystem has completely shifted. Retention flips the entire equilibrium of your life. You start sleeping better because your brain isn't fighting overstimulation every night. Your dreams become more vivid. Your mornings hit different. You no longer wake up feeling like your soul got unplugged overnight. You wake up charged because your nervous system finally has space to recover instead of constantly battling dopamine burnout. The suspense shifts now into transformation because each day you stay on retention feels like you're peeling off another layer of exhaustion, revealing a version of yourself who's part warrior, part monk, part leader. You feel alive in your bones, in your thoughts, in your drive. And this shift isn't loud, it's quietly terrifying in the best way, because you realize how much power you are giving away without noticing. Your confidence becomes organic. Not fake, not forced, not loud. It's the confidence that comes from knowing you're in control of yourself. People sense that stability instantly. They treat you differently. Not because of your looks, not because of your words, but because humans instinctively respect someone who has control over their impulses. Retention gives you that aura. Your social presence upgrades. Your eye contact becomes steady. Your communication becomes grounded. You start speaking from clarity instead of insecurity. You sound different because you feel different. Every interaction becomes easier because you're no longer mentally drained or overstimulated. You're present, and presence is magnetic. Your work life aligns. Tasks that once felt impossible become manageable. Your creativity spikes. Your strategic thinking becomes sharper. You're no longer running from responsibilities, you're running toward them. Retention makes your brain stop glitching and start executing. Your fitness progresses faster because your hormones stabilize. Your recovery improves. Your aggression turns into focused intensity. The discipline you build internally shows up externally in your physique, your posture, your entire vibe. You no longer look tired, you look activated. This is where retention reveals its biggest twist. It makes you attractive without you trying. Not because of a mystical glow, but because you project self-governance and direction. You stop scanning the environment for approval because you no longer need it. That shift creates a pull effect. People gravitate towards someone who isn't mentally leaking energy. Your purpose becomes clear. Not instantly, but consistently. The fog lifts. You start knowing what you want, and more importantly, what you don't want. You start making decisions that align with your long-term identity instead of your short-term urges. You become the architect instead of the passenger in your life. Retention gives you something the modern world has stolen from most men: clarity. Not theoretical clarity, real clarity, the kind that shows up in your behavior, in your habits, in your ambition. You start trusting yourself again. You stop doubting every choice. You feel aligned instead of conflicted. This entire journey becomes a psychological evolution. You stop negotiating with temptation because you know what losing to it costs. And the cost is too high now that you've tasted clarity. Once you've seen life without overstimulation, you can't unsee it. You can't return to being numb. You can't go back to being drained. You've upgraded too much to downgrade again. This transformation is gradual but relentless. Every day adds a new layer of strength. Every week adds a new level of presence. Every month adds a new version of yourself. You begin sensing your potential not as a fantasy, but as a direction. And that direction becomes addictive in the healthiest possible way. Your internal voice changes too. It stops criticizing. It starts guiding. You stop feeling like your mind is a battlefield. You start feeling like it's your headquarters. That shift is rare in a world that's drowning in overstimulation. Retention gives you a level of inner peace most people will never experience because they never detach from the noise long enough to find it. Your discipline compounds. What started with controlling one impulse expands into controlling your habits, your environment, your momentum. You become the type of person who can trust himself to finish what he starts. And once you trust yourself, everything becomes possible. Your energy becomes sacred. You stop giving it away to meaningless triggers. You start investing it into things that matter. Your life begins shaping itself around the man you're becoming instead of the boy you were. That shift feels like watching yourself evolve from soft to sharp, from scattered to focused, from lost to directed. Retention becomes the backbone of your transformation. It's the quiet habit that aligns your entire system. It reduces the chaos and allows your deeper potential to surface. Not because you're holding in magic force, but because you're removing the things that were draining you daily. Your environment begins responding to your new identity. People treat you differently. Opportunities show up. Your mindset attracts better situations because you're no longer vibrating at the frequency of desperation. You're operating from stability. Stability always wins. You stop chasing pleasure because you've realized pleasure isn't the problem, addiction is. And retention kills addiction at the root by breaking the dopamine loop that controlled you for years. That loop shatters the moment you choose discipline over impulse. The suspense reaches its peak when you realize the real enemy was never temptation. The real enemy was the version of you that settled for temporary comfort instead of long-term growth. And now that you've outgrown him, you're unstoppable. Your life becomes structured. Your goals become sharper. Your ambition becomes relentless. You move different. You think different. You feel different. People notice, but more importantly, you notice. Retention becomes your foundation. Not your identity, but your anchor. It keeps you steady as you build the life you always knew you were meant to have. It keeps you focused when distractions try to pull you back. It keeps you disciplined when the world tries to soften you. You become someone who doesn't fold easily, someone who doesn't break under pressure, someone who doesn't get controlled by urges, someone who doesn't need external validation to feel whole. You become a man who owns his energy. This is the evolution retention unlocks. It's not hype, it's not fantasy, it's the natural result of cleaning up your overstimulated brain and giving it space to breathe, heal, rebuild, and rise. You don't become superhuman, you become the human you were supposed to be before overstimulation hijacked your life. The journey doesn't end, it compounds. Every day on retention becomes another brick in the foundation of your strongest self. Every aligned choice moves you closer to the life you want. Every moment of clarity replaces years of fog. And the final twist, retention doesn't just change your habits, it changes your identity. Once you experience life with mental clarity, emotional stability, and internal power, you don't ever want to go back to who you were. Because you're not losing something by practicing retention, you're reclaiming something. You lost your mind, your discipline, your presence, your strength. Your story is only beginning, now that you've taken control of the one thing that controls everything, your energy. If this video gave you real value, tap the thanks button. Your support helps me keep creating deeper content like this. Every thanks is a spark that keeps this mission alive. Your support means more than you know. If you get incredible energy from video, write senior in comments section. If you have other queries, then ask in comments. We'd love to hear from you.